Now, we've always had conspiracy theories and conspiracy theorists, whether it's the JFK assassination or the moon landing. There's always someone somewhere with a better idea of what happened. In recent years, conspiracy thinking has become apparently more popular. It's gone wild. We've had big anti-vax protests in London. Many of us watched the Trump supporters storming the US Capitol to prevent what they believed was a conspiracy against the former president. All kinds of stuff gets drawn in, but what draws people down the rabbit hole in the first place, and how can we help them back out? My next guest spent 15 years consumed by conspiratorial ideologies. He was a firm believer in what he calls conspiracism, a kind of grand conspiracy that combines a range of different theories into a single overarching worldview. And now he's out of it. He's trying to spread the word about the dangers of that kind of thinking. He describes the cult-like nature of the conspiracy community and how being a part of that group gives people a sense of belonging, as well as answers to the complex questions that we all grapple with. So I wonder if you know somebody who just goes for everything. They see it on Facebook, they believe it. The more wacky, the more they believe it. Maybe it's a friend, maybe it's a relative, maybe it's only come out through COVID or all of that stuff. I'd love to know. Email vine@bbc.co.uk and include your phone number. WhatsApp us on 08000 288 291. You can text us as well, 88291. And don't forget, if you email, just write down your phone number so we can get back to you. So Brent Lee, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Jeremy. Thanks for
having
me.
You have a podcast called Some Dare Call It Conspiracy. So you're well out of the conspiracy zone now.
Yes, I am, yes.
What got you into it?
I fell into it in 2003, shortly after, obviously, the 9/11 attacks.
Okay, and you began to develop different theories about what had happened that day, had you?
Yeah, I started coming across conspiracy videos on the internet about the 9/11 conspiracy theories, saying that it was an inside job and that was a pretext to go to war in the Middle East, essentially.
There's a friend of mine who's a reporter. I won't say her name, but she gave a two-way, an interview from New York, and she accidentally said that a tower had fallen, which hadn't yet fallen, one of the smaller buildings, and it then did fall. It was not one of the two main twin towers. But you'll know this video because that was then portrayed as, it was all planned.
Yeah, that's exactly how it was framed from the conspiracists, that this was a pre-planned attack. Even the BBC knew about it.
And when you, it sounds crazy now, I guess, even to you, but when you go into this, is there any rational part of you that says, really, why would an American president choose to launch a secret attack on their own people? And how could you do that without anyone finding out about it?
Yeah, the way that the conspiracies are framed makes you not even question that.
Right. Give us an example then of a current conspiracy that's going around.
The anti-vax stuff is still very, very popular, and today and yesterday has been fueled, obviously, by the Matt Hancock leaks.
And the anti-vax stuff, there are people who genuinely worry about side effects. It's not so much that, is it? It's the idea that this is part of a plot to cull the world.
To depopulate the world, yeah, and an exercise in compliance.
I know we're all drawn, there must be a part of us that's all drawn to this kind of stuff, because when that Chinese balloon was shot down over the States, they then started shooting down everything in the air. And lots of people were saying, come on, there's got to be a couple of spaceships in there. I mean, UFO, come on, everyone loves a UFO theory, right?
Absolutely. We love mysteries. We love figuring out mysteries. That's just human nature, I think.
Are there still people who think the moon landings were staged in a television studio?
Yeah, absolutely. There's tons. There's people that think Stanley Kubrick directed it.
So when you were at your most prone in this world of conspiracy theories, when you were buying as much as you ever did, how wild did it get for you?
I started to believe that everything, even like the Glastonbury Festival, was a ritual, and all of these global events were rituals. There was essentially black magic rituals to hypnotize the world.
Okay, it sounds almost as if you might have been ill. Paranoid?
Yeah, but I don't think you know you're ill, do you? That's the classic.
I suppose that's true, yeah. I was struck by the whole QAnon thing in the States, where I think the actual theory was really difficult to follow, but it seemed to be that there was some sort of ritual paedophile, satanic thing that was going on at the heart of the Democratic Party. There's no evidence for it whatsoever. But then, just when you think, well, this is just ridiculous, somebody then shows up at a pizza restaurant in Washington with a rifle because they've read that that's the headquarters.
Well, they want to do something good. I think that's at the heart of a lot of conspiracy theorists. We're not talking about the trolls on the internet, but we're talking about the real people that actually believe some of these things. They're getting into it because they actually want to make a difference. They think something really bad is going on.
But there are people
and it doesn't help. It doesn't help when governments are quite incompetent.
Well, also, I suppose in a way, people go to church on a Sunday and they believe in God and the resurrection and whatever it is. It would be appropriate to sort of argue with someone that God does not exist. If that's what they want to believe, that's fine. So we do believe in unusual things every day of the week. Yeah.
It's magical thinking,
Well, if someone listening to the radio is religious, they will suddenly take umbrage and say, excuse me, being let's say, a Christian or a Muslim is not the same as having a conspiracy theory.
Well, I'm religious myself. I'm a Christian myself, and I understand that believing in the resurrection is pretty much impossible in our world, but it's my belief, and I think that could maybe help me believe some other outlandish conspiracy theories, to be honest.
So you didn't, when you junked all your conspiracy theories, you didn't throw out the water into wine and the resurrection?
No.
You didn't? Okay, that's interesting. Let me bring in my colleague Marianna Spring, who follows a lot of this for the BBC as our disinformation correspondent. Are they getting wackier conspiracy theories than they used to be, Marianna?
Hi, Jeremy, and hi, Brent as well, who I have interviewed before and whose experiences I think are so valuable for people to hear about. I think that, interestingly, rather than becoming wackier, I think that conspiracy theories are just much more mainstream than they were before. I think that's in part down to the pandemic, which turbocharged belief in some really sinister and outlandish conspiracies denying the reality of what was happening, but they often begin with a legitimate concern or fear or worry that people have, and soon they find themselves led down that rabbit hole, so actually they're believing the really extreme stuff. And I remember something that I always think of when I'm asked that question about, is it getting wackier, was I went along to a protest. It was an anti-lockdown protest during the pandemic, and there were a lot of people there with legitimate concerns and questions about what was going on, and they'd come often from a place of feeling distrustful, feeling let down, and I was chatting to one woman, and she started telling me about her worries around the restrictions, her concerns, her questions, and then she very quickly descended into much more extreme conspiracies like QAnon, which is that unfounded belief that Donald Trump has been waging a secret war over in the US against these elite cabals that you were talking about. And then she just said to me, and right now, under our feet, there are babies in tunnels waiting to be eaten by Prince Charles. And I thought, hang on a second,
Mm-hmm.
How have we gone from this to that? And I think that just tells you about how quickly people, when they're hyper exposed to this stuff on social media, they're seeing it all the time, it's pushed to them, but it's also being shared in their communities, can descend into the stuff that I think a lot of people would think, hang on, how could you believe that and why? But once you've gone down that path and you fundamentally believe that there's something really sinister happening, you can kind of believe anything.
Well, you end up then with this extraordinary thing, Marianna, one of those anti-lockdown rallies. Somebody stands up and makes a speech on a stage where they call for nurses to be hanged for handing out the vaccine. I mean, is that crazy?
Absolutely. And I think as well, it's important to understand the way that conspiracy theories have or have become married up with very violent rhetoric and really quite concerning stuff, as you say, suggesting that people should be hanged or that people should come to harm or people should be hurt. I'm on the receiving end of online abuse a lot just for covering this topic. I know it's something that you've experienced as well, Jeremy, and something you've experienced as well, Brent. So I think that online abuse is a sort of weapon employed by conspiracy movements some people who genuinely believe what they're saying and pushing, and then other people whose motives are questionable. And that's where I come in, really, and I have to interrogate why they're doing this. Do they believe it, or is it about making money, or is it about growing your following, or is it about something else that's aside from the belief itself? And often I think it comes down to that. People say to me, do people genuinely believe this stuff? And for the leaders, I think it's less a question of, it's actually the wrong question to ask. It's more like, why are they doing this? What do they gain from it?
I suppose we have discovered recently that if you decide to tell lies on an industrial scale, you may come badly unstuck. And Brent, that was the case with Alex Jones in the States.
Yes, it was, yeah. And his whole narrative, his false narrative of hoaxes and crisis actors was one of the things that started to pull me out of the rabbit hole. I didn't see that logistically being an option.
Because so, and of course, for people who don't know, he then ended up at the extreme end of saying that the Sandy Hook killings of so many young children at school by a shooter were somehow all staged, and he ended up having to pay billions in damages. I think he's gone bankrupt now.
Yeah, rightfully so as well. And I used to be a big follower of Alex Jones, but actions have consequences.
Thank you very much, Brent Lee, former conspiracy theorist, and Marianna Spring, BBC disinformation correspondent.
Some dare call it conspiracy.